Okay. Hi everyone, it's Maddie. I feel like my lip is really bold today, as well as my eyebrows. I'm trying this. I tried this lip stain from Dollar Tree and it's now on there. But it's candy apple, so I thought it was kind of fitting for Halloween. Also, I am using my mic to try and drown out some of the background noise. I do have a baby monitor, and then my 3.5-year-old is having some TV time. So hopefully that's not too distracting. But yeah, I am a stay-at-home mom, so and we temporarily live with my parents, so I don't have like a great place to film. But if you guys are new, my name is Maddie, and I've been thinking about making a video about C-sections. Okay, now I am not a medical professional, um, and I want to start this video out by saying I see a lot of women advocating for vaginal births. I see a lot of women advocating for like not getting the epidural, for doing your own research. And I even see women that decide to have home births. And I am very much a believer of do what you are comfortable with. Um, and I can so understand why women are pushing for research. The epidural is not great. Um, it is a bunch of drugs. In my first birth, I freaked out because I was in pain and they turned it up really high to where I couldn't even feel if I was pushing. And the epidural does come with risks that I feel like are always talked about. Now, my first was an emergency C section, and my second was an elective C section. So, you're also not going to hear me saying that I think everyone is a candidate for VBACs or that I think all C sections are wrong. Um, but I don't feel like I personally haven't seen a lot of women talking about C-sections, and I feel like I have some insights. I will say I posted both of my birth stories if you want to know kind of what led to the emergency C-section. It was basically a cascade of interventions. I was 40 weeks and 3 days. I went in, I was induced with a balloon, and then I was induced with like drugs. And I don't say I was induced with medication. And then, yeah, I got the epidural and it was turned up too high. I pushed for 3 hours. My baby was also face up, and I have a very ovular um, vaginal canal. And so when I got pregnant with my second, I actually talked to the doctor about having a VBAC, and she said she would support me, but she did not think that I was a great candidate. My scheduled C-section was a much calmer experience. It was just a lot different. I did have my scheduled C-section at 39 weeks, which is also something I see women talking about. Some women are very big on don't get induced at 39 weeks. Like your baby will come when they're ready. And I do think there is some truth to that as well. For me, I chose to have the C-section at 39 weeks because I was afraid of going into labor. I mean, I guess I could have gone until 40 weeks. Usually, if you have an elective scheduled C section, they do it at 39 weeks. Um, and in my opinion, there isn't harm to the baby. Again, do your research, but like her lungs were developed and she was 7.5 pounds. So, um, with my first, I did choose to get induced because I was 40 weeks, 3 days, and I did have gestational diabetes. I did not with my second. And I do believe it's because I breastfed through that pregnancy until I was 7 months pregnant, which I think it's kind of funny because people online like can't really put me in a box because like I breastfed my first until she was 25 months and I was 7 months pregnant with my second. Um, and then I went in and had a scheduled C-section. But I think that goes to show that like pregnancy and birth are not one size fits all. I do think it is so important to find a provider that listens to you and that you feel comfortable with. In my first pregnancy, I don't feel like I had that. In my second, I did. And so I think it's okay to, if you start with a provider and you don't like them, change providers. And are some offices that will put up a stink and be like, no, you can't change providers. You can change providers. You can even change doctors' offices at that point. Um, I also, in my second pregnancy, had a lot more support people go with me. In my first pregnancy, it was during COVID, and there was just a lot going on. And my second pregnancy, my sister was able to go with sometimes, and my fiance as well. And I think that can be really good as a pregnant person to have support people there. And it definitely made me feel more confident in voicing my concerns and my needs. I feel like C-sections are, I'm not going to sit here and say what one's easier, because I pushed for 3 hours with my first. They had to push her back up inside of me to pull her out. I think that C-sections are less work for mom when it comes to actually having the baby. You know, you're not pushing, you are laying there. I will say though that both times, the first time I threw up laying down, it was very overwhelming. The second time I almost threw up, but he was able to get me meds quick enough to where I didn't. I was super shaky both times, had low blood pressure right after. So I think in terms of like the actual work of like the baby coming into the world, it is less work. Recovery, I would argue, is harder. If you have a vaginal delivery with no complications, I think C-section recovery is going to be harder. I've heard women say, I'd rather have a C-section and not have to do the work. Recovery is a bitch, okay? Yes, vaginal birth is so much work, but recovery for a C-section it's brutal. With my first, my C-section opened and I had to go to wound care for 6 weeks, and it was opened about 4 fingers wide and about up to my knuckle. I almost needed a wound vac. It was ordered. It closed just enough to where I did not need it. It's really scary to poop after a C-section. And then like for me, I couldn't carry my babies in their car seats. And my C-section opened with my second, but it was a surface level opening. But yeah, then I couldn't pick up my older daughter. I couldn't carry them in car seats. Like it was very, I will say too, some women, when they have C-sections, I did this research a couple years ago, so this might not be like 100% correct. But I believe that I was reading that when you have a C-section, sometimes it takes longer for your milk to come in, because your body doesn't really recognize that you've had the baby in the same way. For me, it also burned really bad, and I wasn't expecting that. And the nurses were like, "Yeah, it's pretty normal." They also still push on your stomach, which is mildly scary, mildly horrifying, to be honest. It scared me. It's also like super hard to get your baby out of the bassinet after you've had a C-section in the hospital. I saw this thing where some hospitals have bassinets that like come over the bed so you can get your baby out. That seems amazing. We need to get those in every hospital because it is so hard after a C-section to get your baby out. I don't like the belly binders that go like all the way up. I prefer the ones that are like just around your belly. So like in my third trimester, I usually started wearing like a belly support band, and then that's the one I wore after my C-sections as well. I'll put a picture. Listen to me. I need y'all to lock in with me. No matter what kind of birth you have, okay? If you are going to be on pain meds, especially if you have a C-section, okay? Lock in here. Do not stop taking your stool softener, okay? That first poop is going to humble you. It is going to bring you to your knees. It is going to scare you. It is going to okay, I think I took the stool softeners like a month after having my kids, and it was still scary to poop. Also, make sure you're hydrating, okay? Those pain meds will stop you up, and it's also really hard to push after a C-section, okay? Um, I also started taking them before I had both of my daughters. I think like a week before I had them. You ask your doctor. I got stopped up at the end of my pregnancies. Make sure you can take them. But yeah, then you're gonna want to have a squatty potty, and you're gonna want to get a towel, like a big body towel rolled up, right? And you're gonna put it on your C-section and put your legs up and push that poop out, okay? I hope that you don't have a hard time pooping. I did, okay? My first one, I had my feet up on the rim. And Jacob opened the door to check on me and was like, "Hey," it's my fiance. And he was like, "Hey," and I was like, "Get out." And he was like, "Why are your feet?" I was like, "Get out, get out." Not cutesy. I also want to say, if you have a C-section, your recovery time is still 6 weeks. It's still 6 weeks, babe. Do not, do not be bumping potties, if you will, before the 6 weeks. Okay. It's not about whether or not the baby came out your vagina. Mm-mm. It's about the plate-sized wound in your uterus and your body needing time to recover. Your pelvis needs time to heal. So don't be thinking, oh, I had a C-section. Also, this is a whole nother soapbox I could get on. I think the 6 weeks recovery thing is bullshit. I really, truly do. Genuinely. Um, like you're cleared to have sex, you're cleared to work out, and you're cleared to like go back to work at 6 weeks. That is a crock. Okay, because I will say with my second, I was ready at 6 weeks. I think we might have waited until 7 because I was scared, which is valid. Um, my first, it was like 7 months later, and it hurt. We had split. That's a whole different story. I didn't like not do anything with him for 7 months. Like we were anyway. It's beside the point. Um, it might have been later. I ended up needing pelvic floor therapy because they tried to use forceps, and I needed a vaginal stitch because like they tore my vagina, like the inside. And then they had to push her back up inside of me, and she was also in my vaginal canal for 3 hours. So like that was caused a lot of trauma. I had to go to pelvic floor therapy, um, but it helped a lot. But it hurt to try and have sex, so it felt like there was a wall. Um, and then there's like not just the physical side, but like the emotional side. Like if you're breastfeeding, that's a lot of someone touching you all the time, and you're tired. And I think that honestly, that's a whole. This is I could make a whole other video on this, but the 6 weeks minimum applies for everyone. Okay. I also want to say if you get on hormonal birth control, it takes like 4 to 6 weeks to work. If your doctor doesn't tell you that, I'm gonna tell you that. So you're not good to go. When you like come home and take the pill and then you're like, let's go. No, no, ma'am, no, ma'am. I've seen mixed things on whether or not breastfeeding works as birth control. I personally don't trust it. I don't. um, so I've read that if the baby's less than 6 months old, hasn't started solids, which they shouldn't, in my opinion. That's a whole other thing I could talk about for hours. Also breastfeeding. I've made a video on breastfeeding now, if you want to watch that. But yeah, you have to be feeding them so often, can't be on solids. But some women get their period back during that time. And so like then you've ovulated. Like I don't trust it. Just me personally. So it's recommended to wait 18 months. I know that women will have two under two and they have C-sections. I really feel like that's between them and their doctors. And I'm also not like dumb to the fact that birth control fails. And also there are women that are going to decide to get pregnant back to back. And again, that's their body. Um, that's my whole thing. It's your body, boo. It's your body. It's your babies. Like I understand. And so I respect that. I got pregnant 17 months postpartum. I didn't have any issues. Um, I do believe 18 months is kind of across the board for recovery, even if you have a vaginal delivery. Um, my mom did not do that. My sister and I are 17 months and like 7 days. So she did not wait. She did not wait the 18 months. Um, but I think, like I said, pregnancy and birth and all of that is not one size fits all. Breastfeeding is not one size fits all. Parenting is not all one size fits all. I will say I do like gentle parenting. Again, I can make a whole video on that. Not permissive parenting, but we like gentle parenting is you don't hit your kids and you don't get them to obey you through fear. Basically, there is consequences. There is boundaries. A gentle parenting looks different with the two kids that I have. So I just everybody's got to do that. I also wanted to talk about like after you have your baby via C-section, they brought them over to me, and I've seen so many videos where moms will like hold their babies laying down or like touch their babies. I was violently shaking both times, so I was too afraid to touch them. Once they got me, their dad stayed with them. And then once they got me into the recovery room, I couldn't sit up both times. I had low blood pressure. So they had me eat jello both times. And then once I was able to sit up a little bit, they opened my gown. I did skin to skin and breastfed my baby. So I will say with C-sections, you're not going to get that golden hour more than likely right away. Golden hour is where you have the baby, they lay them on your chest, you hold them for an hour. Um, Also, with both of my C-sections, like they move you to a little recovery room and then they move you to the postpartum unit. So you're not even there for very long. They did let my babies ride on the bed with me. I still did like a ton of skin to skin after that. But yeah, their dad held them. But I know a lot of women are like, hold the baby, golden hour. It's so good for you and baby. And it is. It is. But I just want you to know if you have a C section, that's not always possible because of all the meds in your system. You might be shaky, you might be feeling really weird, and obviously, like, you don't want to hurt your baby. If we have a third baby, I personally will just be having a scheduled C-section. I know what to expect. Part of it is I'm not a great candidate for VBACs, and I think it's okay to be aware of that. And for me, mentally, I have a lot of birth trauma from my first. And so I originally wanted a VBAC, and I ended up just crying really hard. And I was like, I'm just so scared of my body failing me again and feeling like a failure. And then if I was going to go all natural, and so if I needed a C-section at that point, they would have to put me under. That was my understanding. Anyway, don't come for me if I'm wrong on any of this. But my fiance was like, it's okay to just have a scheduled C-section. And I almost felt like I was giving up. So I just want you to know, like, if you are choosing to have a scheduled C-section, it's okay. And I know that there are women online, there are mean, mean women that are going to tell you that you're an awful mom, that you're not giving birth, that you're taking the easy way out, that there's never a need for C-section, that there's never a need for scheduled C-sections, that you should try. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them because they don't have to be that way. As a mom that has C-sections, I respect you for having a home birth if that's what you decide. I can understand why a woman would choose to have a home birth. I'm mutuals with women that have home births. And so the way that I respect them, and the way that I respect women who choose to formula feed from get, I think that I should be given the same respect and the same kindness for choosing to have C-sections. Because you just don't know. You don't know. But for me, it is a big mental thing as well of I'm scared. I'm not scared of the giving birth, like pushing a baby out. I'm scared of my baby getting stuck. Because my first did become unstable and she came out not breathing. And that was the worst thing. That was horrifying. I couldn't see her. They didn't get Jacob in there in time. And so it is kind of trauma based for me. I'm not going to lie. There is trauma there. And a big reason for my decision is that trauma. And I won't even lie. And I've talked in therapy about it, but I have to do what's best for me and my babies. And I believe C-sections are what's best for us. And again, not everyone's going to agree with that. And that's okay. That is okay. I posted when I was pregnant with my second, I was having a scheduled C-section. And there were people like, why would you do that? And I would explain it, but there was a lot of times that it just fell on deaf ears. There were people that just could not fathom why I would choose to have a C-section. And again, part of the reason I want to make this video is because I feel like C-section moms, specifically elective C-section moms, are very afraid to speak out because it is something that is so looked down upon now. And I want to say, I understand that there are doctors that will do C-sections when they're not necessary. There are doctors that will do C-sections when that's not what the moms want. There's doctors that do episiotomies without consent. There's doctors, like the list goes on. And I do believe that that is wrong. But I think that you cannot demonize all C-sections. You can say it's wrong to force a woman to have a C-section, to coerce her into a C-section, to scare her into a C-section, while also saying there are women that are going to choose to have C-sections. There are women that are going to need C-sections. And I think that those can coexist. But I feel like some of these women are losing that. They're losing that nuance. And it's kind of hard to see. I do not fight with those women. I scroll because it's not worth my peace. And I don't think that I'm going to change their mind. I think what I can do is come on here onto my platform and say, listen, if you want a C-section, if you need a C-section, you're not any less of a mom. You're not a bad mom. You're not failing as a woman. and it's okay. Um, it's okay. I just want you to know that, okay? And I feel like I needed someone. I needed to hear this when I was choosing to have a C-section with my second. Um, so yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I'm a pretty open book, obviously. Um, like I said, my name is Maddie. I am also on TikTok and Instagram. Um, my usernames are the same. They're the OG Maddie. But I hope that you guys have a wonderful day. And if you're a mom, you're doing amazing. And I hope to see you guys around. Bye, friends.